My boyfriend said, I can't delete her number. She needs me. I've been debating whether I should post this, but I need some outside perspective. I, 26 female, have been with my boyfriend, let's call him Jason, 28 male, for about 9 months. For the most part, things have been great. He's funny, thoughtful, affectionate, and I genuinely enjoy our time together. But recently, something he said has completely thrown me off, and I don't know if I'm overreacting or if this is a serious red flag. It all started a few weeks ago. We were sitting on the couch, scrolling through our phones, just relaxing after work. I was casually looking through some old texts when I noticed that Jason still had a contact saved under the name Kara. I knew the name vaguely. She was an ex of his from a few years ago. I didn't make a big deal out of it at first, thinking, okay, people keep old numbers for reference sometimes. But then curiosity got the better of me and I asked, hey, you still talk to her? Jason looked at me and shrugged. Not really. I mean, she texts me every once in a while. Nothing serious, I nodded, trying to stay calm. But something about the casualness in his tone didn't sit right. So I pressed a little. Do you think you could delete her number? I feel weird knowing she's still saved in your phone. That's when he said it. I'll never forget it. I can't delete her number. She needs me. She's going through a rough time and I'm the only one she really talks to. I blinked. Wait, what do you mean she needs you? Like emotionally? Are you helping her through something? Jason nodded. Yeah, she's struggling with some personal stuff and I promised I'd be there for her. She doesn't have anyone else. I felt my chest tighten. Jason, I understand wanting to help people, but she's your ex. You're in a relationship with me. How is this appropriate? He shrugged again. I don't know, I feel like I can't abandon her. She really needs me right now. I tried to keep my voice steady, but I could feel my frustration rising. So let me get this straight. You're refusing to delete her number because she's in need of you, but I'm supposed to just be okay with that? You're emotionally invested in your ex while we're dating? He paused, looked down, and then said softly, I care about her, but I care about you too. I'm not choosing her over you. I don't know, I can't delete it. That was the first time I realized this might be more complicated than I thought. I wanted to be supportive. I wanted to understand. But deep down, I felt like a line had been crossed. I didn't know how to articulate it at the time, so I let it go that night, hoping I'd get clarity later. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time my phone buzzed, I imagined Jason's thumb hovering over Kara's messages. Every time we made plans, I couldn't shake the idea that part of his emotional energy was being directed elsewhere. I started noticing little things I hadn't before, how he'd laugh at her texts, how he occasionally referenced something she said years ago, how he hesitated when I asked about deleting her number again. Finally, I decided I needed to address it directly. We were sitting on the balcony one evening watching the city lights, and I said, Jason, can we talk about Kara again? He looked at me, a little defensive. I thought we talked about this. We did, but I don't think I made myself clear. I'm uncomfortable with you keeping her number. I'm uncomfortable with the idea that you're emotionally involved with her in any way while we're together. I feel like it's crossing a boundary. He sighed and leaned back, staring at the skyline. I get that, but I can't delete it. She really does need me. I can't just cut her off when she's struggling. That's not who I am. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. I understand wanting to help someone, but this isn't just about her. It's about us. It's about trust and boundaries. You're prioritizing her needs over mine in this situation, and it hurts. He frowned. I'm not prioritizing her over you. I'm just being there for someone who's in pain. I don't see the harm in that, I shook my head. The harm is in the emotional closeness. You're allowing someone from your past, someone who used to be in your life romantically, to occupy space in your present. I feel like I'm competing with your past, and that's not fair. He didn't answer right away. We sat in silence for a while, the only sound being the distant hum of the city below. Finally, he said, I didn't realize you felt that way. I thought I was doing the right thing by being there for her. I wanted to understand him, I really did. But I couldn't shake the feeling that what he was doing wasn't just helping a friend in need. There was an emotional attachment, whether intentional or not, that I wasn't comfortable with. I started questioning whether he really understood the implications of keeping his ex in his life while we were building a relationship. The tension lingered for weeks. Every time Kara messaged him or he talked about her, or even hesitated when I asked him about deleting her number again, I felt a pang of jealousy, insecurity, and hurt. I tried talking to him repeatedly, explaining my feelings, emphasizing that it wasn't about controlling him. It was about mutual respect, boundaries, and emotional safety. But he remained firm. I can't delete it. She really needs me, and I'm not going to abandon her. At first, I thought I could manage it. I told myself, he's just being a good person. He's not trying to hurt you. Trust him. But over time, the emotional strain grew unbearable. I started noticing myself becoming more anxious, questioning every interaction, feeling insecure, and even resenting him a little for refusing to compromise. I began confiding in friends about the situation. Most of them were sympathetic. If he really cared about you, he'd respect your boundaries, one friend said. Keeping an ex's number when she's supposedly in need sounds like he's prioritizing her over you emotionally. Another friend added, it's one thing to help someone in crisis, but it's another to keep them in your romantic orbit while in a relationship. That's a red flag. Even after talking to friends, I couldn't shake the guilt I felt. I didn't want to control him. I didn't want to make him feel like he couldn't help people. I loved him, and I wanted to support his kindness. But every time I thought about the number, every time I imagined him texting her or responding to her messages, I felt a knot in my stomach. One night, after another long discussion, I finally asked him, Jason, if Kara wasn't in crisis, would you delete her number? He hesitated. Maybe. I don't know. She's been part of my life for so long. I guess I'd consider it, I sighed. So it's not really about the number itself. It's about her needing you. That's the issue. You're allowing her need to dictate your actions, even though it hurts me. He looked down, silence stretching between us. I don't know what to say. I don't want to hurt you. I love you. I feel like I can't ignore her. That was the point where I realized this wasn't just a small issue, it was a fundamental conflict. My boyfriend was prioritizing his ex's emotional need over my comfort and our relationship boundaries. He wasn't being malicious, but he also wasn't willing to compromise in a way that made me feel secure. Reddit. Here's where I'm stuck. AITA for feeling hurt, insecure, and conflicted over the fact that my boyfriend refuses to delete his ex's number because she needs him. I want to support his kindness and help him be a good person, but I also need to feel safe, respected, and prioritized in our relationship. After that first conversation about Kara, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time Jason's phone buzzed, my heart would skip a beat. I knew he wasn't cheating, at least not physically, but the idea that he kept her number, her messages, her presence in his life, made me feel like I was competing with someone from his past. Someone who had a history with him, someone who had been intimate with him in ways I never would be. At first, I tried to rationalize it. He's just helping a friend in need. He's not choosing her over me. He loves me. I repeated it over and over in my head like a mantra to try to quiet the jealousy that kept rising. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the thought that he was emotionally available to her in a way that he was supposed to be with me. It wasn't just the number. It was the emotional energy I imagined he was giving her. Every time he laughed at her texts, every time he hesitated before deleting an old message, I felt a twinge of anxiety. I began overanalyzing everything. The way he held his phone, the way he smiled after reading a message, the way he occasionally referenced past conversations. Each small action felt like a reminder that she was still part of his emotional world. One evening, I tried to address it again. We were making dinner together, chopping vegetables and listening to music. I asked casually, "Do you really think she needs you that much?" Jason looked at me, a little defensive. "She's going through a hard time. She doesn't have anyone else. I'm the only one she trusts right now." I shook my head, frustration bubbling under the surface. "I get that. But she's your ex, and we're in a relationship. You're prioritizing her emotional needs over our relationship boundaries. That's not fair to me," he sighed, leaning against the counter. "I'm not prioritizing her over you. I'm just being there for someone who needs me. I can love you and still help her. I don't see the harm." The harm I realized wasn't rational. It wasn't about logic. It was about emotional safety. Every day I felt like I was competing with someone who wasn't even here. Someone from his past who didn't have to respect my feelings, but whose existence in his life constantly reminded me of my insecurities. I started noticing patterns that I couldn't unsee. Jason would text her late at night, ostensibly checking in to see if she was okay. He would sometimes pause before responding to me, distracted, thinking about what he'd said to her or what she had told him. Even small things, like referencing something she had said months ago, made me feel like I was living in the shadow of someone who no longer mattered to him romantically, but who clearly still mattered in some other way. One night, after a particularly long and stressful week, I finally confronted him. We were sitting on the couch, the glow of the TV illuminating the room, but I wasn't really paying attention to the show. I looked at him, trying to keep my voice calm. "Jason, I need you to be honest with me. If Kara weren't in crisis, would you delete her number?" He hesitated, frowning. Maybe. I don't know. She's been part of my life for so long. I guess I'd consider it." I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. "So it's not really about the number itself. It's about her needing you. That's the issue. You're allowing her need to dictate your actions, even though it hurts me." He looked down, silent for a long moment. Finally, he said softly, "I don't want to hurt you. I love you, I feel like I can't ignore her." And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just a small issue, it was a fundamental conflict. My boyfriend was prioritizing someone from his past over my comfort and the boundaries of our relationship. He wasn't malicious, but he also wasn't willing to compromise in a way that would make me feel secure. Over the next few weeks, the tension grew. I found myself becoming more anxious, checking his phone when he wasn't looking, obsessing over every text he received. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't stop. I began resenting him, even though I knew logically that he wasn't doing anything wrong. But emotionally, it felt like betrayal, like I was being asked to accept a situation that put me second to an ex who was supposedly in need. I tried talking to him repeatedly, explaining my feelings. I told him it wasn't about control. I told him it wasn't about jealousy in the shallow sense. It was about emotional boundaries, about feeling prioritized and respected in a relationship. I wanted him to understand that his actions, even if well-intentioned, were hurting me. But he remained firm. "I can't delete it. She really does need me. I'm not abandoning her." And that's when I started questioning everything. Could I be okay with this? Could I continue loving someone who was emotionally invested in someone else, even if it was just as a friend? Could I trust him fully when a part of him was devoted to someone I could never compete with? I began confiding in friends, hoping for clarity. Most of them were blunt. "If he really cared about you, he'd respect your boundaries," one friend said. "Keeping an ex's number for emotional reasons while in a relationship is a red flag." Another friend said, "It's one thing to help someone in crisis, but it's another to keep them emotionally entangled in your life. That's not fair to you." Even with their advice, I felt guilty. I didn't want to be controlling. I didn't want to make him feel like he couldn't be kind or helpful. I wanted to be supportive, but I also wanted to feel safe, prioritized, and respected. And right now, I didn't. I realized that this wasn't just about Kara or her need. It was about Jason's inability to see the emotional consequences for me, his inability to compromise, and his refusal to prioritize the boundaries of our relationship. Every time he said, "I can't delete her number," it felt like he was putting her emotional comfort above mine. That's when I knew things couldn't continue as they were. I loved him, yes, but love alone couldn't fix this. Trust, respect, and emotional safety were essential too. And in this situation, I felt like I was constantly being asked to accept a setup that made me uncomfortable, anxious, and resentful. Reddit. I need your perspective. AITA for feeling hurt, anxious, and conflicted about my boyfriend refusing to delete his ex's number because she needs him. I want to support him. I want to be understanding, but I also need boundaries, respect, and emotional security. Am I wrong for feeling this way? By this point, the situation had become unbearable for me. I loved Jason, but the emotional weight of Kara still existing in his life, coupled with his refusal to delete her number, was taking a toll on my mental health. Every time his phone buzzed, I felt a surge of anxiety. Every time he mentioned Kara, even casually, I felt a sting of jealousy that I couldn't control. I hated that I felt this way, but I couldn't stop. It all came to a head one Saturday evening. Jason and I had planned a low-key night at home, just dinner and a movie. I was trying to relax, telling myself to focus on the present, but my mind kept replaying the last time we talked about Kara. The conversation had gone nowhere, and I felt like I was trapped in a loop of insecurity and frustration. While we were cooking, his phone buzzed. I didn't even look at it at first, but the way he instinctively glanced at the screen and smiled made my stomach twist. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Who's that? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. It's just Kara, he said, casual. She's asking for advice. I felt the familiar knot in my chest. Jason, I can't do this anymore. I love you, but I can't keep feeling like I'm competing with your ex. You refuse to delete her number, you prioritize her needs over our relationship boundaries, and it's making me miserable. He paused, his knife hovering over the vegetables, and looked at me with frustration and confusion. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help someone who really needs me. I don't see why that's a problem. I shook my head, tears brimming. It's a problem because it affects me. Because every day I feel like I'm second place to her emotional needs. You love me, you say, but your actions, keeping her in your life, refusing to delete her number, say otherwise. Jason set the knife down and ran his hands through his hair. I don't know what you want me to do. I can't just abandon her. I promised I'd be there for her, and I mean it. She really does need me. That's the thing, I said, my voice shaking. You're prioritizing her over me. You're prioritizing her emotional needs while you're supposed to be committed to this relationship. I can't compete with that. He sighed heavily, looking down at the counter. I don't know how to make you understand. I love you. I want to be with you. But I also can't just erase the past or her needs. I can't be someone I'm not. That night, we went to bed angry and frustrated. I cried myself to sleep, torn between love for him and the knowledge that this situation might not be sustainable. I felt trapped, caught between wanting to support his kindness and needing to protect my own emotional health. The next few weeks were a roller coaster. Sometimes he would seem to understand my feelings, offer reassurance, and try to comfort me. Other times he would revert to prioritizing Kara, and I would feel that familiar sting of jealousy, anxiety, and hurt. I began noticing myself withdrawing emotionally, trying to protect myself from further pain. I didn't want to resent him, but I couldn't stop feeling like I was losing ground in the relationship. One night, I confronted him again. Jason, I can't do this anymore. I love you, but I can't keep feeling like I'm competing with someone who isn't even here. I can't feel second to her emotional needs. It's not fair to me, he looked devastated. I don't want to hurt you. I'm not choosing her over you. I just don't know how to handle this. I care about her, and I promised I'd be there. I can't break that promise, but I also care about you. Can't we find a way to make this work? I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. I don't think we can. I've tried to understand. I've tried to be patient, but it's too much. I can't keep living like this. Constantly anxious, constantly second-guessing your loyalty, constantly worrying that part of your heart belongs to her. He reached for me, but I pulled back. I love you, he whispered. I really do, but I can't let go of her. She needs me. I can't ignore that. That was the breaking point. I realized that love alone wasn't enough. I couldn't continue in a relationship where my emotional needs were consistently deprioritized, where the boundaries I considered fundamental were ignored, where my sense of safety and trust was constantly undermined, even unintentionally. It was heartbreaking. I didn't want to leave him. I loved him deeply, and part of me still does. But I had to be honest with myself. Staying would mean accepting ongoing emotional distress, anxiety, and resentment. I couldn't do that to myself. In the days that followed, I tried to process everything. I reflected on our relationship, the laughter, the intimacy, the love we shared. None of that was invalidated by this situation. But I also acknowledged the truth. Jason's loyalty to his ex, his inability to delete her number, and his refusal to prioritize my emotional boundaries created a conflict that love alone couldn't resolve. I began considering the next steps. I knew I had to have one final conversation, a conversation where I would be firm, honest, and clear about my needs. I couldn't leave things ambiguous or unresolved. When I finally spoke to him, I said, Jason, I love you. I care about you. But I can't stay in this relationship under these circumstances. I need a partner who can respect my boundaries, prioritize my emotional safety, and fully commit to me without lingering attachments to the past. I hope you understand. He looked crushed, but he nodded. I get it. I'm sorry. I don't want to lose you, but I understand why you have to do this. I hope you're happy, even if it's not with me. And just like that, I realized that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes the right choice is the hardest one, walking away to protect yourself, even if it breaks your heart. After that final conversation with Jason, I felt a mix of relief and heartbreak. Relief because I had finally set a boundary I knew I couldn't compromise on. Heartbreak because I truly loved him and had hoped we could find a way to make it work. The days after we parted were some of the loneliest I've ever experienced. I kept replaying our memories, the good and the bad, wondering if I had made the right choice. Friends were supportive. "You did the right thing," one said. "You need a partner who can meet your emotional needs and respect your boundaries. It's not about not loving him, it's about what's sustainable for you." Another friend added, "If he really cared about you, he would have understood that keeping an ex in that much emotional proximity is hurtful. He chose his ex's need over your comfort, and that's a problem." At first, I felt guilty for leaving. I kept thinking, am I being selfish? Could I have been more patient? Could I have compromised more? But then I reflected on how much stress, anxiety, and emotional turmoil I had been experiencing for months. I realized that staying would not have changed Jason's feelings or his priorities. Love alone couldn't erase the fact that I felt secondary to someone else in his life. I started the healing process slowly. I focused on myself, spending time with friends, pursuing hobbies I had neglected, and processing my feelings through journaling and reflection. I learned to recognize the signs of emotional strain and the importance of boundaries in relationships. I also came to terms with the fact that leaving didn't mean I loved him any less. It meant I was choosing to protect my well-being. Interestingly, I found a sense of clarity in hindsight. I could remember the good times with Jason, the laughter, the shared experiences, the moments of intimacy, without feeling resentment. I also understood that Jason hadn't acted maliciously. He truly cared about me and wanted to be with me. But his inability to separate his past from our present created a conflict that couldn't be resolved without one of us being hurt. Reflecting on it, I realized some important lessons. Love isn't always enough. You can love someone deeply, but if fundamental boundaries and emotional needs aren't respected, a relationship may not be sustainable. Boundaries are essential. Being clear about what is acceptable in a relationship and what isn't is not controlling. It's protecting your emotional health. Emotional presence matters. It's not just about physical fidelity. Emotional fidelity is equally important. If a partner's heart and attention are divided, it creates strain that can't be ignored. Walking away can be necessary. Choosing yourself doesn't mean you don't love someone. Sometimes it's the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and the other person. Months later, I feel more at peace. I don't resent Jason, and I don't regret my decision. I can think of him fondly without the anxiety that used to accompany his presence in my life. I've learned to trust my instincts and recognize when love isn't enough to make a relationship healthy or sustainable. Reddit. I'm still processing everything, but I feel confident that I did the right thing. I set boundaries, I communicated honestly, and I made a choice that preserved my emotional well-being. I hope one day Jason finds someone who can coexist with his loyalty to the past without conflict, and I hope I find someone whose heart and attention are fully present in the here and now. So, AITA for ending a relationship with someone I loved because he refused to delete his ex's number, claiming she needs him? From my perspective, I acted with honesty, self-respect, and consideration for both of our emotional health. But I want to hear other perspectives. I want to know if I handled this fairly.